Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
Looking forward to the show. Really good topics tonight.
We got some breaking news that broke at about 1:30, I want to call it. It's about 5 hours ago. We'll talk about that on today's show. We also got a number of updates. Boomer Esiason saying the Davante Adams trade is essentially completed. Will be done later on in the summer. However, we heard from Davante Adams' agent where that's not really the case, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But let's begin with our first topic of today's show, which is indeed the breaking news. So, Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade after several unsuccessful attempts to signing him to a long-term contract. Now, we heard reportedly the 49ers offered him about $26 million annually, while he was looking at some of the more recent contracts like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he wants about $30+ million annually. He threatened to hold out. Now it looks like he's requesting a trade. We'll see if the 49ers honor that. But I would like to know, do you expect San Francisco to actually honor a Brandon Aiyuk's trade request and trade him somewhere by the start of the regular season?
I don't think they want to do that. Their ideal would be that he play out his contract this year at $14 million for this year. And then they'd make a decision at the end of the season or early in the next season. They have a couple of young wide receivers, a guy named Pearsall, right? I think his name's Pearsall. And another guy, Cowing. So I think they want to see how those guys do. If they think he can step up, they can step up into Aiyuk's role or close to it, which will be hard to do. I mean, Aiyuk had a great season last year. 75 catches, 1,342 yards, 7 TDs. That's a nice season. I mean, the yards per catch there on 75 catches, 1,342 yards. That's one of the best. So he's a deep ball guy. You can count on him. He made some pretty fantastic catches, too, in the playoffs there. That one, the tip ball, he caught that. He had the presence of mind to go get that ball. He's a quality guy. I think that one reason the 49ers are hesitant here, they have some money constraints. I mean, they gave Bosa 5 years, $170 million recently, 4 years, $64 million to McCaffrey, $28 million cap hit for Debo. So, their financial situation doesn't just make it that easy to just go out and hand Aiyuk a great big contract. But if I were Aiyuk, maybe, I think he's playing the game that some of the others of the 49ers played. It was both Debo and Robbie Gould requested trades and got deals. And the deals that were done with Debo, Kittle, Warner, and Bosa all got done late in July. So I think he's watching he studied what's happened with the 49ers over the past. He sees where they are with it. So now he's putting that threat out there. And he already got $101,000 worth of fines for holding out of the minicamp, the mandatory minicamp. He gets fined $50,000 a day if he holds out here, but those fines can all be waived in a rookie contract deal if he signs with the 49ers. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's over yet.
It's definitely not over yet, as did Ian Rappaport say when we talked about it on Friday's show, where he said this is not the last that we've heard of it, and I completely agree with that. So when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk, and I've said this now, this will be my third time saying it, Aiyuk has no advantage whatsoever. They could franchise tag him. They could weaponize that franchise tag by threatening him. You can't go anywhere. We're just going to franchise tag you. He holds out. He gets fined. He has no trade clause. He has no franchise tag. He's got none of that. And at worst of all, he's on a team which is largely, said as the number one receiving depth team in the NFL. Several positional unit rankings have them as the number one receiver unit in the NFL. I think that's pretty hands down just by the amount of depth and the talent from top to bottom. The major factor in whether or not Aiyuk will get this deal, because I think eventually the 49ers, as they did with Debo, they will give in. I don't know how much. They're going to need to come to an agreement somewhere. But do I think he is worth the amount of money that he's asking for with some of these recent contracts of $30 million plus? I don't. I personally don't. But what Aiyuk has going for him is that he is Brock Purdy's favorite receiver. Last year, the passer rating to only receivers, and we're doing like qualified receivers here. We're not going to do if they had like 60 targets or whatever. We're doing like 100 plus, give or take, total targets. So if we take a look at only the receivers, Brandon Aiyuk is over 20 passer rating points higher than any other receiver, Debo being the next one. So when it comes to who's really Brock Purdy's favorite receiver, it's Brandon Aiyuk through and through. And I think that's where the 49ers might shoot themselves in the foot. However, if Ricky Pearsall all of a sudden becomes this monster receiver, it's like, okay, we drafted your replacement. We can get you for a first-round pick. We could trade you for a first-round pick, which I do think that Aiyuk is worth. He does have the level of talent to go to a team that's desperate enough for a true wide receiver to pay that kind of money. Now, obviously, we're going to be looking at some teams recently, like the Commanders, because of Jaden Daniels and their connection there. The Patriots need a receiver. The Lions even could use a number 2 receiver if they want to increase their depth in that position. Obviously, with his buddy Amon-Ra St. Brown making 4 years, $120 million per year. So if they want to go that route and increase their depth after they lost Josh Reynolds, that might not be a bad option. So it looks like when it talks about communication between Aiyuk and the 49ers, it's all been good. But it's because of that massive number of $30 million to the 26 that they reportedly offered Aiyuk earlier in the offseason that he doesn't want. I don't think he's worth $30 million. $30 million is a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. And think about it. If the 49ers are not willing to pay and he had a phenomenal season last year, I think that's really, not even arguable. For nearly 1,500 yards if you include the postseason, 8 touchdowns on base. Guess what? 70% of his balls he caught. So he's catching 7/10 of everything that's coming to him. Nice. If you include the postseason, nearly 1,500 yards, 1,491, 8 touchdowns. He was the best deep ball receiver in the NFL last year. He was the number 2 overall graded receiver. And we saw the separation he creates for Brock Purdy. That's why we had a conversation. We're going to talk about it actually later on in the show when it comes to who's more valuable, because CMC was doing the ground and pound work. Purdy was putting up these massive numbers, and everyone was talking about not seeing any defender on screen. It's because of the amount of talent they have. And Brandon Aiyuk's a massive part of that. You bring up a good point, though. With Aiyuk and that tip ball, hey, if that's an incompletion or if that's an interception, the Lions, they continue their role there. They continue their streak and potentially make it to a Super Bowl here. Aiyuk kind of stopped that, set him up for a play, set him up for a score. So Aiyuk's impact last year with Purdy is very telling of who Purdy likes, who he's comfortable with, how he develops his game. You get rid of his number 1 receiver, he's going to have to rely on guys. While, yes, he did target Debo 109 times over the course of the entire season, everyone can see and look at the fact that Brandon Aiyuk was Purdy's number 1 guy, even though on ESPN he's not listed as the number 1 receiver. So he has no leverage when it comes to contract or even placement on the team because they have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Deebo Samuel, CMC, George Kittle. They are filled with talent.
Trent Williams on the offensive line.
They're paying him a massive amount of money, and that's probably why Aiyuk's looking at some of these contracts. Christian McCaffrey's the most expensive running back. Trent Williams is a very expensive left tackle. George Kittle is paid pretty nicely. Mm-hmm. Deebo Samuel got a nice contract.
Yeah.
Aiyuk's like, where's mine? It's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in a way.
Yeah.
We see Jerry Jones handing out...
Put the receivers back up there again.
We see Jerry Jones handing out contracts to Zach Martin, and they paid Dak Prescott a lot for the time being.
Do you think Brandon Aiyuk is as good as Jalen Waddle?
Yes, I do.
Do you think he's better than Jalen Waddle?
Yes, I do.
I don't know.
I think he's better than Jalen Waddle.
I don't know. 3 years, $84 million is $28 million a year.
That's about what I would pay him, $29 million.
Okay, so he's already offered 26.
And he turned it down. He's looking for 30 plus. He's looking for the Amon-Ra St. Brown
I don't think he's going to
deal.
get 30. I agree with you. He's not going to get 30. You should have taken... Well, how many years did they offer him for 26?
It's probably a 4-year deal.
4-year deal.
We're not going to see the amount of years they offer. We're looking at the number.
I don't know what that is, but if he could average 26 to $28 million a year, he should take it. I think.
Making 26 a year would make him the 8th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, so that's not a bad offer. That's a pretty nice offer. I do think your point about Brock Purdy kind of having the same kind of core wide receiver talent around him is important because they did make it to the Super Bowl with that team last year. And Brock Purdy still be just a third-year quarterback. He's comfortable with the receivers that he has. He threw it a lot to Aiyuk for very efficient yardage gains. I mean, 1,342 yards on 75 catches. That's over 18 yards a carry a catch. I'm sorry. And, I think they should think hard about that. If Purdy's comfortable with him and they want to go back to the Super Bowl, I think they'll try hard to make a deal with Aiyuk.
I think you have to, but if you're able to trade him away to a team that's desperate, we're looking at the Patriots, the Steelers, the Jaguars. Apparently, we're in contact with the 49ers. The Commanders.
A lot of teams are interested.
A lot of teams, as they should be. You're definitely going to get at least a first-round pick for him. So how valuable? And you obviously get more than that. You
but
probably
you know
get a
what?
first
They
want to
win. They
want to
win the Super Bowl next year.
Of course they do.
Are they looking for draft picks now? I don't think so. I think they want to hang on to their core quality team that they got to the Super Bowl with. I don't think they should be looking for draft picks now. They want to hang on to someone like Aiyuk, or if they're going to trade for somebody of equal value.
I think so. I think something that's very telling is that Deebo Samuel requested a trade early in the offseason.
This year?
No. Was it 2 years ago? Last
22,
year?
22.
Yeah, so 2 years ago.
Then he got his deal in late July.
Right. Brandon Aiyuk asking for it a week out of training camp. So he's trying to use that to his advantage of, now you have to scramble. I don't want to be here. So scramble to make a decision. Figure it out. So, because that's really all he's got. He has really no leverage at all. He doesn't have a no trade clause. Doesn't have a no franchise tag. He's on his rookie deal. He's playing on his fifth-year option. He would have to if he does play. He's valuable if they do decide to trade him. The 49ers, literally, they have full control over this.
Yeah, they don't want to trade him. They would rather have him play out this year without a contract, but he'll be unhappy doing that if they force him to do that, and he gives up on his holdout. So they're better off trying to make a deal with him. If they can't, then they got to trade for as best they can equal talent, because they want to go to the Super Bowl. They're not in a rebuilding mode. They don't need high-level draft picks right now. They want to win the Super Bowl.
And the only way they're going to do that is if they stay consistent. And also Kyle Shanahan can't completely blow, fourth quarter leads in the Super Bowl, which he has done. He's a part of 3, I think, of 7 double-digit fourth quarter blown leads.
I put that on the defense last year. I mean, Purdy took him down the field in the fourth quarter and got the lead. And then they wound up a tie, and then he had the lead in the overtime, too, and lost that because of the defense. They fired the defensive coordinator and hired a new guy.
Right.
I didn't put it on Shanahan.
I 100% put it on Shanahan. They were playing prevent coverage. They needed to go, 20 yards, and they're playing 15, 20 yards back. They're going to dink and dunk your way through it. That's defensive calls entirely. And also, offensively, you go away from... We talked about this for the Super Bowl. They went away from the run in the second half. CMC was not as big of a factor as he was in that first half of the game. That's on coaching alone. I mean, this system, Kyle Shanahan's system, is sought after. We're seeing people from Shanahan's tree
But Shanahan's system is the offense. The defense is what screwed up the 49ers. They had the lead twice.
How about not getting his team ready for overtime rules? And no, everybody said that they had no idea what to do in overtime.
Well, they played okay. They had the lead.
Well, the decision is what people were, ripping Shanahan for taking the ball first instead of letting the Chiefs make the first statement. I thought it wasn't a bad decision. But people
did fine.
Well, not getting your team prepared for the overtime, I think that's definitely on the coach. If you have this brand new rule and no one knows what they're doing, and they thought the game would be over if they score, then you're going to take a step back. So I think right now, Aiyuk is at a disadvantage because of the fact that this is his rookie contract. There's no special additions or subtractions away from it that put it in his favor. He's playing on his rookie deal, and that's unfortunate, and he's asking for $30+ million when really his average annual value is about 28, 29 based on Spot Track.
29 isn't that far from 30.
Right, but we're talking about, like you said, is he amongst these other receivers?
I don't think he's better than Jalen Waddle.
So you would put him even below would you put him over or below Davante?
Around a Jalen Waddle contract. That's $28 million a year.
I agree with you. I don't think he's worth 30. If they were desperate, this would have been done. $31 million. Have a nice day. If they were desperate. This team is literally, based on everybody's ranking, this is Warren Sharp, very intelligent guy, makes a lot of money off betting on games. He ranks the San Francisco 49ers receivers number 1. Running backs, number 1. So they have the best offensive unit in the NFL depth-wise. Ayuk's at a disadvantage there. If it was the Patriots, if it was the Commanders, if it was any other team that needs a receiver, the Steelers even, this would have been a $30 million plus deal annually. We wouldn't even be talking about this. But it's the 49ers. They're stacked. They've been stacked for years.
Plus, they have some financial constraints, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
They gave out some big contracts already. There's only so many of those you can do.
Ask the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Once you start giving away these big-time contracts, everybody's like, where's my
CeeDee
money?
Lamb still doesn't have his deal.
Dak Prescott.
Doesn't have his deal yet.
Zach Martin held out for a while until he got his deal. So it's about, Micah Parsons is going to want to get paid.
They can wait one more year on him.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, yes, if you pay a bunch of these guys lots of money, the next guy up's going to be like, okay, I'm ready for my big-time paycheck. When it's like, well, because we paid these guys, you're going to need to take a hit, which is unfortunate in Ayuk's case because he is such an incredible player, and he proved it last year. Actually, he's been proving it basically every year of his career. He grows every single year. But unfortunately, it does look like that this is going to be a never-ending story for the time being when it comes to the 49ers. But albeit, let's say, do you think Aiyuk will be traded sometime this season? Or do you think that he's going to work it out with the 49ers?
I think he's going to work it out with them.
I agree with you. How much money? You think they're going to give into the 30 number?
I think they'll be close, but not quite.
Okay. I agree with you. I think it'll be that 28, 29 that he'll come down because if he's asking for 30 and they say, fine, we'll go
He's
from
young.
26
He's
to 28.
young. He's going to have another contract. It's not like he can't think he would get another contract later on. If he gets a $28, $29 million contract for 4 years, he's still going to be young enough to get another one. So, hey, if you got confidence in yourself, take $28 million a year, man. That is a lot of money.
Absolutely.
That's right up there. That puts him up in the top 5 or 6 receivers, right? If he gets that kind of money.
Well, the $30 million will put him in number what? That's the next quote. Yeah, it's about number 4, number 5. He'd be top 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if he's asked, is he a top 5 receiver in the NFL? I can name 5 receivers under normal circumstances
that are better.
Tyreek
Hill, JJ.
Yep.
Right?
Justin Jefferson.
AJ Brown.
This is your list, not mine. So
Mike Evans.
You think Mike Evans is the top 5 receiver?
I think he's better than Brandon Aiyuk. Okay.
Oh, fair enough. That's going to be a hot take.
Put that.
You want the contracts up
back,
here?
Yeah, put that back up there.
Did you choose Amon-Ra St. Brown over him?
Davante Adams. Yeah.
Davante, we're going to talk about him actually next. The quarterback situation, he was not happy whatsoever about his quarterback situation.
Understandably so.
I completely agree, but I could name 5 receivers that are better than him.
Okay, tell me your 5.
Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua should be up in the top receivers anyway. But you know what? Let's bring it up again because I do think these contracts are good. So Justin Jefferson, yes. Tyreek Hill, yes. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm going yes. AJ Brown, yes. And I think for my last one, I'm probably normal circumstances, not a bottom 10 quarterback. Davante Adams is on my list. And then Cooper Kupp, Puka, Mike Evans. CeeDee Lamb. Okay, no, screw that. Davante Adams drops down. CeeDee Lamb's top 5 receiver. CeeDee Lamb's in my top 5.
Okay.
But there are a lot of receivers that I'm like, okay, well, if you don't have Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback, Davante Adams is competent. I mean, he was people rip on Derek Carr. Davante Adams got double-digit touchdowns and like 1,400 yards with Derek Carr. He goes to Jimmy Garoppolo. He goes, what, 2 touchdowns, 9 picks, something like that? Was garbage. Davante Adams nearly walked out last year.
I know. He was upset.
Which is where we're going into our next topic because during Monday's edition of the WFAN show, former New York Jets quarterback and current NFL analyst Boomer Esiason suggested that the New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders could be in the midst of a big-time blockbuster trade between the New York Jets with Davante Adams teaming up with Aaron Rodgers again, and this was his quote. I'm hearing that this is going to happen. If it does happen, somewhere in late August, early September. I'm not sure about why it would take that long. And then he doubled down today by saying, that's what I'm hearing. It's going to happen. That's what he's hearing. I would like to know, though. His
agent apparently is kind of denying that.
I'll get to that right now. Davante Adams' agents Kenny Chapman and Frank Bauer regarding these recent trade talks amongst the Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders is, quote, "This is baseless, unfounded speculation, and Davante is expected to be with the Raiders as there has been absolutely no trade talk, period." So, Boomer Esiason making this claim that he's here and that this is going to
well,
happen. I want to know, do you believe that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams will team up soon based on the time frame? Late August, early September?
I'd say it's less than a 50% chance.
Less than 50?
Less than 50% chance because of this. Boomer Esiason is a New York sportscaster.
WFAN.
You think he wants to hype the New York fan base? That does it. Saying Davante Adams is coming to the Jets, it's almost a done deal. That's going to get people excited. They're going to be watching the Fan, listening to Boomer. Is he right about this? His agent says it's groundless, that there's no talk at all. So I don't know why an agent would say that. If he thought there was going to be a deal, he would stand to make money on that. The agent would, for sure. So I'd say it's less than a 50% chance. The Raiders, though, have dead cap money, $40 million, and Adams is $25 million of that. He said, and Adams also said, "I'm going to get out of here before I get killed." At one point, not sure what that meant. Rodgers said, "Can't wait to play with Adams again." And he'd be there with Garrett Williams and Wilson and Mike Williams. That would be with Davante Adams there. Wow. That would put them right up there in terms of best receiver cores in the NFL. If the Raiders did trade him, they would save $17.5 million. Is that enough money to get rid of one of the top 5 or 6 receivers in the NFL? I'm not so sure. I don't think so. So this Boomer said that he got this idea after watching the latest episode of Receiver on Netflix, where Adams said that he was looking to get out of Vegas. He could be looking to get out of Vegas. So it's hard to say. I think it's less than a 50% chance. I think if it did happen, the Raiders would be asking for a lot. I think the Jets would have to give up first rounder, maybe two first-round picks, maybe a player, maybe one of their better players, along with a first-round pick. It would be expensive for sure, but if it could get done, should it get done? I'd say yes. I think that would be really a step upward for the Jets, although we have some question marks about Aaron Rodgers at 40 years old coming back from a very serious injury to his Achilles tendon. So a lot of question marks there. I don't give it a high probability.
Well, it for me, it really depends, because what we saw from the very beginning is that Aaron Rodgers has a lot of power over the Green Bay Packers, and even before he came to the New York Jets, he was already having the Jets move pieces and acquire, capital when it comes to Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, try to get Mercedes Lewis, hinting at David Bakhtiari and all of this. And the Jets did comply with Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb. So how much power does Rodgers still hold? I think that's the big question. How much power does Rodgers really hold over the New York Jets? Because we knew at the very end, Rodgers held basically all the power over the Green Bay Packers because he got his big-time $50 million a year contract, which Diana Russini reported. Rodgers criticized her for reporting that because it wasn't true. And then a little bit later, lo and behold, he has a $50 million a year contract. It's crazy how that ends up. So if Rodgers does have the power that he had at Green Bay, which it started off looking like that, but it seems like he's there just to play football, although his actions speak a little bit differently. If he's just there to play football, this trade's not going to get done. Unless Davante Adams still holds the same anger and frustration he had when Jimmy Garoppolo was his quarterback, because that's when, these big-time quotes of, I'm getting killed out here. And really, you look at it, and he's not happy whatsoever, slamming his helmet down, very frustrated. That was on Garoppolo. Well, he ended up getting Garoppolo benched, and now Garoppolo's on the the Rams. I think we could see similar frustrations because it's between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Those are his quarterbacks. Or he could try to force his way to the Jets with his old buddy Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers has said publicly that he wants to play with Davante again. And Davante Adams said on Up and Adams recently how Rodgers has been in his ear about teaming up. So I think it really matters how much power does Rodgers still have. Because recent actions with them potentially trying to get off of Nathaniel Hackett, or at least, I wish I had it in front of me right now, they wanted to go out and get Arthur Smith as a potential help piece for Nathaniel Hackett. But instead, and this is a crazy quote. We talk about the power. So this is what Rodgers said on an interview of SiriusXM's Mad Dog Sports Radio in May, and I want you to react to this. And this is a direct quote. Well, you should trust me, and I trust Nathaniel. So to me, that's the end of the story. There's been a lot of BS that's been said out there. There's a lot of things that have gone on the past couple of years, and that he's dealt with that, and I think he's handled very professionally. And at the end of the day, I think you got to trust his and my working relationship and the conversations we have. You got to trust the staff.
Yeah, well,
if you trust me, trust him. He might suck, but it's my decision, so you got to keep him.
Yeah, well,
that's what that message says.
I think you're exactly right. I think that Aaron Rodgers likes Nathaniel Hackett because half the time he comes to the line of scrimmage and changes the call anyway. He changes the call anyway, and no one says anything about it. And they don't make any noise about that. So that's a good setup for Rodgers. He wants to stick with it. Is Nathaniel Hackett a great offensive coordinator? Absolutely not. He proved that last year. He couldn't get, but although he was working with Zach Wilson, which wasn't easy, but he didn't. The quarterback play was terrible for the Jets last year after Rodgers was out after 4 plays.
Right. Well, the fact that the Jets seemingly wanted to add Arthur Smith to help out Nathaniel Hackett, and if I'm not mistaken,
why would they even bother? Why don't they just have Arthur Smith be the offensive coordinator? The Steelers wound up getting him.
Well, I think it was to try to make sure Rodgers is not that frustrated by firing the guy that he wanted to be that they got to lure him to the Jets. And I think that if they just outright fired him, because we have to remember they hired Nathaniel Hackett before they even got Aaron Rodgers, that if you straight up fire Hackett before Rodgers has a chance to really allow Hackett to be his OC, that's kind of disrespectful to him. So they were trying to make Rodgers not that upset by saying, you know what? Arthur Smith's just going to help you out. You're going to help out your buddy Hackett, and you know what? Let's just chill. But if I'm not mistaken, did that happen? No. Arthur Smith is now the OC of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Rodgers had a hand in that. Because I think, we just look at what he said in May. Well, you should trust me, and I trust Nathaniel. So to me, that's the end of the story. Once again, I understand. Rodgers has this, passion for Nathaniel Hackett as his offense coordinator, as his play caller. But recently, even someone from the Jets, I wish I can get the quote up immediately, someone even said that, something that's crazy about Rodgers, that he just walks up, doesn't matter what the play's called. He's going to get out there, make his own play, look at the defense, change it up anyway.
Yeah.
So why do you need an offensive coordinator? It's like Kyrie and KD about Steve Nash. Why do we need a head coach? Like, why do we need a guy to call plays? I'm just going to call whatever play I want to anyway.
He's not going to say that. That's too controversial. But he knows that it doesn't matter. He can do whatever he wants.
Right.
He's in the perfect situation. He does whatever he wants. He says the players he wants, they go get them. He says the offensive coordinator he wants, they hire him. He doesn't do what the offensive coordinator call the plays he calls. Nobody cares. Yeah. So as long as he wins. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Daniel Jones speaks about his expectations for the 2024 season, as well as did Brock Purdy get snubbed on a NFL executive coaches and scouts ranking of the top 10 NFL quarterbacks. We'll talk about that.
He's not the only one that got snubbed.
We'll talk about that right after this.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion. with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on this Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So Daniel Jones recently went on the Sims Complete podcast and discussed his expectations for his make-or-break season. Take a listen.
Do you feel pressure about this is a big year and the team and you and all that? Or is that just something that we talk about that really has nothing to do with what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about that. I think, it's about your work and being prepared and playing well. And, I expect a lot of myself. I expect a lot of the team. And what's going on outside of that is not necessarily something that is going to drive me the same way that just how well I want to play for myself and for my teammates. And that's right. Kind of what I'm working toward or what I'm motivated by, mostly. So
I would like to know, do you think Daniel Jones will have a bounce-back season after his neck and ACL injury back in last year of 2023?
Well, I think he'll play better than he did last year, but will it be a total bounce-back? Hard to say. I think the Giants, they did go out and get Malik Neighbors, but he's going to be a rookie, so that's a little bit of a question mark whether he'll adapt to the NFL right off and be really good, but that's a potential better piece than Jones has had for several years there in the wide receiver ranks. So that's something that could help him out. The offensive line, will it be any better? That's hard to say too. They did go out and get Smith from the Cowboys, right? I think
that's the Jets. That's the Jets.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They got Jermaine Illuminor. They got John Runyon from the Packers.
Okay. So they did try. They did try to get some.
They got Schlottman.
Pieces. Did they draft a lineman?
They did not.
They didn't draft.
They went wide receiver, safety, cornerback, tight end, running back, linebacker.
Yeah. He says he doesn't lack confidence. He expects a lot of himself. Expects a lot of the team as well. What's going on outside is not something that is going to drive him. It's his own goals and trying to play well. He had his worst season in 2023. He's only 27 years old still. He's injury prone, man. He had that neck injury. He's had it twice, and now he had a ACL, which is a serious injury. Saquon Barkley's gone. That's not going to help for sure. The Giants looked up at moving up and to get the quarterback draft to try to get Drake May, and that he went to the Patriots, so they wound up picking Malik Neighbors instead from LSU. Jones says that Neighbors is fun to watch, and he's had a good spring. He's got the physical tools. He's explosive, and he's got a lot of strength. Jones hasn't thrown much to him because he hasn't been cleared to play yet. But he's running and cutting, and he's doing everything he needs to do. So we'll see what happens. DraftKings has him ranked number 6 as a comeback player in 2024. So remains to be seen.
I think it's telling when a rookie quarterback, and probably, graded-wise, the Giants were the worst, but overall on sacks given up, your rating for your divisional rank is dead last. These are the most updated odds for the NFC East. A rookie quarterback with a horrible offensive line and a defense who lost its top 2 players last year, they're currently rated better than you. And you did all these upgrades. You got Brian Burns. You upgraded your offensive line. You got actually a promising young safety in Tyler Nubin. Apparently, Tyrone Tracy Jr., people love him as a running back. And yet, your odds, and it's not even that close, to be honest with you, in your division rank. You are favored in only 3 of your games. You're underdogs in the other 14. So if we go just based on favorite and then underdog, you go 3-14, which is not great. And that's with an updated offensive line. That's with an addition at receiver with Malik Neighbors. You got rid of some of your poor pieces on the offensive line. But I do think, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily agree with me, the Saquon loss is more massive than people are thinking. He's not exactly a replaceable guy. Devin Singletary will not produce at the same level as Saquon. Absolutely not. You lost Xavier McKinney. That's a big loss for you. Tyler Nubin will not come in here and then shock the world with how good he is, because Xavier McKinney was a very, very nice piece. Yes, you upgraded your defensive front. Your defensive seven is very nice with the addition of Brian Burns. But I don't think he's going to be a game changer, because guess what? The offense was your main deficit. A massive deficit at that, without an absolute doubt, without any shadow of a doubt. And Daniel Jones being your quarterback, as you always say, the quarterback handles the ball on every play.
That's right.
And if we remember, he's improved this greatly, although last year we saw, some problems still. He has fumble problems, not seeing the field clearly. Head coach is a firecracker. God forbid Daniel Jones makes a mistake. And he makes some very costly mistakes, like a 97-yard pick six to Devin Witherspoon against the Seahawks. So this offensive line, yes, it is upgraded. And so, like I said, let's bring up the Warren Sharp positional rankings for 2024. Quarterback rating, 28th. Offensive line, 32nd. Wide receiver, 26th. Running back, 31st.
Okay. Pretty bad.
This guy makes thousands of dollars per year betting on games.
Yeah. Okay.
He does actually do some advanced analysis for this. I'm going to trust some rankings, and also I'm going to trust the eye test of Daniel Jones is just not a good quarterback. His best season, the one that made him the $40 million a year, he threw 15 touchdown passes. You want to throw the rushing in there? 22 total touchdowns. And that's $40 million a year for 22 touchdowns in your best season that you didn't even look that good doing. You just played it conservatively.
Well, I think that the Commanders and the Giants will fight it out for last place in the division.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you.
And I agree that the Giants, 3 or 4 games, probably what they're going to win. And, their schedule is not that easy either, right?
Absolutely not. Some of the hardest games that I think are definite losses are the
Dallas twice.
Eagles
twice.
So that's 4 losses. You play the Ravens, so that's 5. You play Cleveland, which I'm saying is a loss. You play the Bengals, which is a loss.
It's 7.
And then some of the other maybe ones. Buccaneers. There's some difficulty there. Don't.
Do they play the Buccaneers at home or?
Yeah, they are home that game.
Yeah, they might win that. They might be competitive in that one.
How about the Atlanta Falcons?
I don't think they'll beat them. They have Kirk Cousins now. Is
Right.
that at home or away?
That's it away.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win that
Pittsburgh Steelers, they always have a great defense.
I don't think they'll win that game either.
Right, so we're just adding loss on top of loss on top of loss on top of loss. Then some of the other easier games are definitely the Panthers, the Commanders, although both, the Commanders, once again, will bring up the number again, projected to beat you in the standings, which is a problem. But normally Daniel Jones beats them or splits with them. The Vikings week 1, Saints week 14, Seahawks week 5. There's a couple of these games where you might be able to pull out a win because, some lackluster quarterback play. You're playing Sam Darnold. You're playing a rookie. Poor offensive line as well with that rookie. The Panthers are just bad straight up. They're just terrible. The Saints, how is Derek Carr going to look under a new offensive system? Who the hell knows? But, 6.5 wins currently is your forecast. I'm probably going to go with the under and say 5.
I'm going on the under on that.
6-11 again, or maybe 5. And by the way, some of the losses: Xavier McKinney, Adoree Jackson, Saquon Barkley, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, by the way, was the best quarterback in the Giants system last year. Yes, Tommy DeVito had a couple nice games. I think it was a 3-game winning streak. It was great. But if you do the eye test of how Tyrod Taylor moved the ball down the field, you could see that Tyrod Taylor was the better quarterback last year for the Giants. So and also the big one, Daniel Jones is hurt. He's injury prone. He hasn't, like you said, even been cleared to play football. He said he's doing everything he can, running, stretching, moving, cutting, all of that.
I'd say if the Giants are under 5 wins, Dabo's gone. I think he'll be out. I think they'll fire him.
I think that there is a chance where
Bill Belichick's out there. I think the Giants would
Eagles apparently are also interested in
the Giants. He's interested in the Giants.
But
I
also
think the
Eagles interested in the
Giants
too.
fans remember Bill Belichick from the Super Bowl years, and I think that both winning and losing, right? He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. He lost 2 trying to beat them. So
right.
I think they love him for both. So I think that Belichick would love to come back to the Giants, and I think that the Giants fans, if they have a 4-win season, would love to have him.
I think Malik Neighbors is a great pickup because they needed a wide receiver that was, undisputable. Like let's take a look at their offensive unit, by the way. We're saying that this is like an 8-9 win team. We're saying that this is a playoff team. We're saying that if these guys are healthy, they're going to take you to a playoff run. All due respect, no. Like Malik Neighbors is going to be a good receiver, hands down. He is a very, very talented receiver. There was, question or not whether or not he should go above Marvin Harrison Jr. on draft day.
They blew it when they got Darren Waller.
We're actually going to hear tonight
he was
on the
1 year. He was hurt most of the time, and then he retired.
Although they used the draft pick they got from the Kadarius Toney trade on him, so they didn't lose anything of their own per se. Because when they traded Kadarius Toney for I think a 3rd round pick, they used that for Darren Waller.
For Darren Waller, yeah.
But
they could have used it for somebody else.
Probably. Devin Singletary will not give you 1,400 yards. He won't give you 1,200 yards.
Or the catches, too.
Yeah, he won't give you the passing production. Darius
Plus,
Slayton,
you got to play against Saquon Barkley twice. He's going to smoke you both times.
He's going to be hungry, absolutely. So this schedule is very difficult because you do play some top teams. Yes, and the Steelers, their defense always shapes up to be at least very acceptable. They might not be a top 10 defense. They might not be a top 5 defense, but TJ Watt's still going to get double-digit sacks if he's healthy. We're going to see Minkah Fitzpatrick still intercept a couple balls away from you. We're going to see Alex Highsmith perform very well at the linebacker spot. There are a couple pieces there where you're like, okay, well, I still got to worry about that. And behind the offensive line that, yes, okay, they upgraded it slightly, but they didn't get any big-time name guys. They didn't get anybody who's really that great. Runyon, not that great. Illuminor, not really that great. John Michael Schmitz was literally graded the worst center in the NFL last season. So I don't know if this team is going to improve drastically. Last year, they were 6-11. Are we, what is the expectation here? Give me a number. Give me something to work with. Do you think they'll win 8 games, 9 games? Are they a double-digit win team? Because I don't think anybody, honestly. So Giants, I think the majority of Giants fans, as any fan of any team, is super hopeful. Like, for instance, what would you hope the Patriots' record is this year?
If they won 5 games, I'd be.
You're saying
5 or 6. I guess if they won 6 games, I'd be surprised.
I said that they win 6 games. Because I'm realistic here. We got a rookie quarterback.
I'd be surprised if they win 6.
You'd be surprised they win 6 games, right. But I think, and I've heard it directly, a lot of people think that this is a playoff contender or very near it. 8
the Patriots?
No, not the Giants.
The Giants?
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
It's because they're in New York.
Right.
People like to, like to suck up to New York teams.
This is my point. This is my point. And I think it could be because the NFC is inferior to the AFC. If the Giants were an AFC team, there is nobody saying that they're above the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns, the Chargers, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying the Giants are better than any of those teams. They have no shot in the AFC. But it's the NFC. So you got to bridge a gap between Bears, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Falcons, Buccaneers. You got to weave through some average to good teams. Not teams that should be consistent playoff contenders, but because they play in a conference where basically 10 of the teams you could say are vying for a playoff spot.
I'd say the NFC teams upgraded themselves in this past offseason.
Because they're so bad, they get high draft picks.
Yeah, they got good draft picks, and they also, you look at Atlanta, they picked up Kirk Cousins.
I think that's a massive pickup. So the Giants play Kirk Cousins in week 16.
Yeah.
And that's at Atlanta, which I think could be I don't know exactly. I think not domination. I think they're going to lose. Because the defense is not that bad.
The
offensive line for the Falcons is great. Bijan Robinson.
The defense might keep the Giants in a number of games.
That's what I'm saying. Some of these moves make it seem like they're going for like 13-7 wins, something like that. We're talking early 2000s.
14-10.
Yeah, stuff like that. Because this offense, the production level, it's your quarterback. And I brought this up last time. When Daniel Jones throws 25 times or more, they're 17-33-1. When Saquon rushed for 50 yards or more, they were 22-28-1. We see a pattern here. Give the ball to your running back. Yeah. It helps you out massively.
And if you can get the running game going, the play-action pass is there for you.
Absolutely. Now, what's sad is the unit spending for the Giants is basically 66% offense, 33% defense. And I think if you were to look at this team, you would say the defense is probably superior to the offense.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're telling me you're spending 66% of a lesser unit, find better players. At that point, that's the problem with the Giants. Have they ever hit the full reset button? I feel like they haven't. They've always tried to stay alive. They made the playoffs in 2016 with Eli Manning.
Because they're in New York. They're in New York.
They've never, like, for instance, the Jets have tried consistently to try Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson. Now they're on to Aaron Rodgers. They have bottomed out several times, and I think, honestly, that's not them trying. That's just circumstance. They thought Sam Darnold was the guy. They thought Zach Wilson was the guy, and that wasn't the case. Adam Gase, head coach, horrible. They tried. The Giants have always tried to stay relevant.
I'd say the Jets, though, their main reason for losing has been the quarterback position.
Yes.
And maybe wide receiver they haven't had a lot. Garrett Wilson's really been their best receiver.
They went 7-10 with Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, and Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
7-10, and you're saying Aaron Rodgers can't improve that by at least?
Oh no, I'm saying that the quarterback has been the problem the last 3 years.
Exactly.
They probably would have if they'd had a good quarterback the last 3 years. They might have made the playoffs every year.
I could completely agree with that. So for me, the Giants are looking at a 5-12. If they get a lucky win here or there, 6-11 repeat of last year. But I do think there is pressure. There should be pressure because Daniel Jones is injury prone, not able to perform very well, and just all around. I mean, think about it. Some people were criticizing me for not putting him in my top 10 list at the beginning of last year after a 15 passing touchdown season. He's not a top 10 quarterback. Tell me what top 10 quarterback has 22 total touchdowns. You're not going to find it because no top 10 quarterback, top 15 quarterback has 22 total touchdowns. Just doesn't happen. So he goes into this season. He should look a little bit better than 1-5 or whatever his record was. He should look a little bit better. Should not have, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions? But we don't know. We've seen one good season. He got paid and he regressed back to pre-contract, pre-2022 Daniel Jones. It should look better. Upgrade offensive line. Got a true wide receiver now. Darren Waller's loss, I think, is going to be bigger. Daniel Bellinger's okay, but he's not someone who's going to be like, oh my God, this is the next George Kittle. This is the next Travis Kelce. This is the next Mark Andrews. Even Isaiah Likely, I would probably take over Daniel Bellinger. So we'll have to see. But for me, 5-12 sounds about right. All right, let's get into our second to last topic here. So ESPN did a NFL executives, coaches, scouts rank when it comes to top 10 quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy actually missed the top 10 list. The top 10 list, and we'll bring it up right now. This is it. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott. Now, there were some honorable mentions, which was included with Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy was actually the first one, so I assume this would be 11th and on. So Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, and Trevor Lawrence round out the rest of the honorable mentions. After a tremendous season, Purdy does not make it. I want to know, do you think Brock Purdy got snubbed from the NFL executives, coaches, and scouts top 10 quarterback ranks?
I do think he got snubbed, and he's not the only one. I think Jalen Hurts also got snubbed. So I wouldn't have put Matthew Stafford at number 5. I probably would have swapped Brock Purdy in there. I think that you did your 10 quarterbacks, and I liked their list a lot better actually than this one. You had Jordan Love in the top 10 as well.
He was my number 8.
Yeah. I would have swapped him to be number 10 and put Dak Prescott up at number 8. So you didn't have Aaron Rodgers in there at all, right?
Nope.
He was not in there.
He didn't play.
And that's all right. He didn't play. So, and putting Joe Burrow at number 2 when he only played 10 games last year, we did have him, or you had him in your top 10.
I had him at number 6.
And I agree he would have been in the top 10, but not at number 2. So this is a little odd. I'm very surprised at Matthew Stafford at number 5, given the season they had last year. He did get the playoff game, but lost it. And, the year before, he was hurt quite a bit. He didn't play well. He threw a lot of interceptions. So I'm not sure what they had. A high rank was 3, low rank was 10. He's 36 years old. Last year his ranking was 10. We've never had him in the top 10, I don't think. I've never had him in the top 10. So he did win a Super Bowl. 5 out of the top 7 are 27 years or younger, 27 years old or younger. So I think those metrics are important here, but I would have dropped both Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford, substituted Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love.
That's fair. I think absolutely. And I ripped on Brock Purdy before, calling him a game. I didn't think game manager was that bad of a title. I called him a system quarterback because we saw how great quarterbacks that aren't that great looked with Kyle Shanahan as their offensive mastermind. Jimmy Garoppolo made it to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. Brian Hoyer, Pro Bowl quarterback. Matt Ryan, MVP and made a Super Bowl. That's all Kyle Shanahan's inner workings and his offense. So obviously, when Brock Purdy comes in and looks as good as he did, we could look at Kyle Shanahan and be like, oh, this system worked because we saw what Jimmy Garoppolo looked when he was on the Raiders in that mess of a scheme with Josh McDaniels as his head coach and completely fell apart. Davante Adams, which we mentioned earlier on in the show, was about to get up and leave. He actually made Jimmy Garoppolo get benched because he was so frustrated about how things went. So I do think Brock Purdy did get snubbed. Because if we're just going, and let's bring up the list one more time. If we go on a numbers game alone, and I think one of the reasons why, and this is the quote for why Brock Purdy is where he is. Quote, it's hard to call him a top 10 based on the guys ahead of him, but it's hard to keep him out of the top 10 too, an NFL executive said. He willed that team to the Super Bowl, only right to give him serious consideration. Yeah, I would completely agree. Because the numbers speak for themselves. We're talking about NFL historic numbers. Passer rating, yards per attempt. He was very good in just passing yards in general. Passing touchdowns, he was up there. Completion percentage, he was up there. We're talking about a guy who was like top 3 in nearly every stat. Sometimes, most of the time, he was number 1 in the stat. So what are we basing this off of, really? Because if we're talking about pure talent, yes, Brock Purdy does not have a Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, or Patrick Mahomes' arm. He doesn't have the athleticism of a Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, or even Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, any one of those guys as well. Correct, he is not that athletic compared to them. He does not have as big an arm as them. But you know what he does have? A lot of skill. He plays into his system beautifully. And it works. It works really well, so much so that he's lost only a handful of games, went undefeated for his first season right before his injury. Who knows? He could have gone undefeated that entire season, which would have been very impressive. But I do think having Aaron Rodgers as high as he is, and we're going to bring it up one more time, having him as high as he is at number 8, when all we've seen from him is 4 snaps, 75 seconds, and he's a top 10 quarterback.
He's has an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
He's coming back.
And how about this? How about we just base it on? Forget about 2023. How about the last time we saw him? Was he a top 10 quarterback? Well, based on his history, that season, that 2022 season, was one of his career's worst seasons ever. And if we're talking about in the NFL alone, mid to bottom 10. His numbers were middle of the road or bottom 10. And he is number 8 on this list.
Mm-hmm. Do you have your 10?
I do have my 10. I showed it before when you were giving your take, so we'll bring it up right now. This is my top 10 quarterback. I can understand if you want to put Matthew Stafford above a couple of these guys, because Matthew Stafford, I mean, think about it. We talk about the Rams. They were a 5.5 projected win team and won 10 games. I have no problem with that. I think Jalen Hurts' rushing ability, though, yes, he did do the tush push, but a lot of other teams tried. Some succeeded, some failed. I got to give him credit for that. Also, Dak Prescott had the number 2 best season by a quarterback, was number 2 in MVP odds. I got to put him in my top 10 list. I have no problem with putting Matthew Stafford here. Zero problem. He'd probably be number 11 for me. Number 11 or 12. No problem with that. But that is my top 10 list.
So the ones that you had that are not on this...
Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy.
And that would swap out Matthew Stafford,
Aaron Rodgers, and Justin Herbert.
Right.
Yeah. Justin Herbert played okay, but I mean, he looks like he has rest. The eye test tells you it was not that pretty, and it could be injuries. Obviously, that plays into it. But I have to go based on what I got on the table. Mahomes had a guy dropping every pass that was thrown his way. Costly, meaning pick sixes and interceptions off the top of his hands. and he still went out and won a Super Bowl.
I would put Purdy ahead of Justin Herbert.
I would as well. And this is coming from a guy who thought Justin Herbert should be drafted over Tua Tagovailoa in the draft. I've been a huge fan of Justin Herbert since that draft back in 2020 when this channel used to be called Fast Break. I did my draft projection. I had Justin Herbert. I chose what I thought would be right over what I wanted, but I said during my mock draft I would pick Justin Herbert over Tua. So I think Justin Herbert in the right system. I do think this year we will see a better Justin Herbert because the defense, and this is the sad part about the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert scored the most points in NFL history in the first 3 years. His defense also gave up the most points in NFL history in those 3 years.
He had a good incentive to go out there and sling it.
I mean, Brandon Staley's defense was pitiful. Exactly. He needed to sling the ball. They also were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL last season. Austin Eckler was basically washed. He's not a great running back. So I think the Chargers will be much better. I have no problem with Stafford, but I do have a problem with Brock Purdy, who was number 1 in several categories, in top 5 and top 3 in several others, like passing yards, passer rating, yards per attempt, touchdowns. That's what I got a problem with. And also, Jordan Love, no problem. Not a big enough sample size, although he did play 10 games. CJ Stroud played basically a full, the last 10 games were great. The full season was okay. CJ Stroud is on this list, which then again, I think everybody's putting CJ Stroud just because they were in awe of how great he was, because we heard about the that 2 on the that test. I forgot the name of the test. He got a very, very low score. People were, oh my God, his testing capability. I don't give a damn what you score on a test. How well do you play football? If you can understand a playbook, execute at a high level, you could average at 85 in college or in high school or whatever. I don't care. You can get a 65 on a test, but if you could throw over 5,000 yards and 45 touchdowns and win 10 games after your team, is horrible, I'll take you 10 times out of 10. So the CJ Stroud testing, I don't really care about. Jalen Hurts, I can understand. The decline, the injury wasn't great. Tua, cold weather, he becomes frozen. Kirk Cousins, injury. He was great before then, though. Trevor Lawrence, that was ugly. People say, oh, he's hurt. Was he injured enough to be out? Or did he put up a crap performance? I think it's the latter part. We criticized Baker Mayfield for the end of his last season with the Browns. He had a torn labrum and another injury that hindered his ability to play. And lo and behold, we are shocked by his performance. We're actually going to talk about him next. You put out a product. I have to take you at what you're giving me. Yes, you can give me context, but if you're using that as a reason to try to be like, oh, make excuses for him, be like, okay, he's playing, isn't he? So Trevor Lawrence, I don't really mind that. But yeah, Brock Purdy should be above at least Aaron Rodgers. How about Dak Prescott, who can't perform in big time moments?
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert. They went 5-12 last year. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, maybe
Matthew Stafford.
Jordan Love is a little bit of a push because of the sample size.
Yeah,
but
last 10 games.
He looks like he's destined for glory here, and his wide receiver core was just gelling last year. A lot of rookies in there, second-year players. Once they gelled, man, he looked like a world beater, and they're going to start out the year with that this year. So I think he's going to have a great year.
I completely agree. But speaking about a quarterback that I mentioned, Baker Mayfield, let's actually talk about something that Baker actually mentioned recently. I just want to bring up the quote here before we jump to the next stuff. Here we go. So, during a recent appearance on 102.5 The Bones, the Mike Calta show, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield discussed being discarded by both the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers in 2022, and this is what he had to say. Quote, "You're having a lot more fun when you're not getting shipped off to different places like a piece of dirty laundry, I'll tell you that. So when I got embraced by Tampa, it made a world of difference." We all know that Baker Mayfield got shipped around to a bunch of places. I had an infamous quote that I'm sure you're going to bring up sometime in this topic that I've already backtracked on. He got a 3-year deal. Everything's okay. Last year, very impressive. A lot of the aspects of last year were better than Brady's last year in Tampa. 8-9 versus 9-8. Baker, better yards per attempt. Baker did a very good job in his first year with Tampa. But I want to know, do you think that Baker will repeat, and the Bucs will repeat their level of success that they had in 2023 over into 2024?
They won how many games last year?
9-8 they went.
I think it'll be the same.
Same.
I really do. I have them winning their opener against the Commanders, losing against the Lions, at the Lions, winning against the Broncos at home in week 3, losing against the Eagles at home. I think they have them losing at the Falcons, then winning at the Saints, losing at the Ravens, winning against the Falcons at home, losing against the Chiefs. They have a tough schedule, man.
They do.
They're going to lose against San Francisco. They'll beat the Giants. They'll beat the Panthers. They'll beat the Raiders. They'll lose to the Chargers. They'll lose to Dallas. They'll beat the Panthers again, and they'll beat the Saints again. 9-8. That's my prediction.
That's not bad. I'm not exactly disagreeing with you because I do agree with you. They do have a very, very tough schedule. And the one problem that the Bucs do have is that their losses were against some of the better teams. Against teams that made the playoffs, the Bucs were 1-5. That doesn't bode well for the schedule. Because think about the playoff teams that they're going to face: the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Cowboys. That's 6 teams right there.
Yeah.
Will they go 1-5 again? Will they go 0-6?
I don't have them beating any of those teams.
Right, so you have them going 0-6. So I think it's going to be very tricky to see exactly what Tampa Bay does with Baker Mayfield, because it was very weird last year. The Bucs' efficiency percentage, and especially Baker Mayfield's efficiency, it's something of awe, actually, because what's crazy is that through early downs in quarters 1 to 3, Baker Mayfield is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Hell, he's ranked 30th in the league when it comes to accuracy, EPA per attempt, succession rate, yards per attempt, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio, big time gains. He was a horrible quarterback. Accuracy out of 48 qualified quarterbacks, he was 42nd. But what's funny is he makes his own job harder, because in 3rd and 4th downs, he was actually one of the best quarterbacks, a top 10 quarterback. And we would go from 42nd in accuracy on early downs in quarters 1 to 3 to on 3rd and 4th downs being number 6 in accuracy. He's a top 10 quarterback in 3rd and 4th downs. But he makes his job so much harder by being so ineffective in the early downs. What's crazy is that I think that this isn't typical of Baker Mayfield. I don't think last year was really who Baker Mayfield is. Now, I have spoken very poorly about Baker Mayfield. I have. And you know what? Tell me the quote. What did I say? Just give it to me again. What did I say about, I want to say, is it 2 years ago at this point?
You said he would never start in the NFL again.
I said Baker Mayfield will never be a starter in the NFL.
And I said that was not true, and I was right.
You were right about that. And I took that back because I was very impressed. And you know what? I'm gonna stick something in your craw a little bit. We both thought the Bucs would be going for the 1st overall pick. We both thought that at the beginning of last year. However, though, we were both shocked by how well Baker and the Bucs played. And I think that it is not reminiscent of who Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers are. Because at the end of the year, they were very lucky, because after week 12, they were 4-7, looking like a bad NFL team. And then they played some very easy competition. They played Bryce Young and the Panthers twice. Desmond Ridder once. That's pretty easy. That's 3 wins right there.
Yeah.
And they went 2-1 in their last 2 games. And remember, that last game against Carolina, what was it, 9-0 was the score?
Yeah. And Baker Mayfield played terrible.
They got stomped by the Saints as well late in the season. And then, oh my God, they were going up against the tanking Eagles. They look like a top team in the NFC. And then, honestly, I'll give them credit. Very close to being the Lions. They had an opportunity to drive late, and Baker Mayfield threw an interception. So I was impressed with the way they played. So let's actually get into the schedule, because I haven't. You did your schedule breakdown and go 9-8, so let's do mine. So I'm not as hopeful this season, even though I was not hopeful whatsoever. I do agree with you. Win over the Commanders, loss over the Lions. I'm going to go win over the Broncos. So right now we're even at a 2-1 pace. Then it's going to be loss against the Eagles, loss against the Falcons. I'm actually at Saints. I'm going to actually make them lose in that one. So that's our massive difference. Loss against the Baltimore Ravens. At home, they're against the Falcons. I'll give them the win. Loss against the Chiefs. Loss against the 49ers. At Giants, that's a win. At Panthers, win. Versus the Raiders, that's a win. Chargers, loss. Cowboys, loss. Panthers, win. Saints, win.
Yeah, 8-9.
So I have them going basically Tom Brady.
I got 9-8.
Tom Brady, basically. That's what
I
I'm
haven't
looking at.
beaten the Saints twice. You have them losing to them once.
Yeah, because
That's the difference.
I do think there will be a game where either Baker plays poorly or Derek Carr has a very, very good game, because actually some of the losses were pretty big. Yes, Shaq Barrett did not have his best year last year, but it's still a edge rusher that you lost that you already needed more of, because that's who you're drafting over here and who you picked up in free agency. You lost Devin White. He was one of your best linebackers. Now he had a pretty poor season last year, but since he has been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's been very good. Here's the big one. You lost cornerback one, Carlton Davis. That is a massive loss. Now you brought back Jordan Whitehead. Oh, familiar face. I think that's a nice pickup to add. And Antoine Winfield Jr., phenomenal safety. You got Levante David to stay one more time. That's great. Your offensive line, that was a problem. The offensive line was not great. They were ranked 25th in ESPN's pass block win rate and 31st in run block win rate. Well, you didn't really upgrade. You did upgrade your center, which was the main portion of why you were that poor. Aaron Stinney did an okay job, not that great. So letting him go, and you know what's crazy? Every left guard that played a snap for the Buccaneers last season is no longer employed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are elsewhere, free agent, or they got picked up by another team. So that just shows you how bad the left guard was. And you did upgrade it. Now your left guard is Bredesen. So I'm saying the Bucs do go 8-9. Baker Mayfield plays okay. Does he get 4,000 yards again? I'm going with no. 3,500 yards is perfectly fine for a quarterback that played very well and really shocked a lot of people.
Yeah, they have good receivers, though.
They do, absolutely.
Godwin and Evans are back.
Godwin, right? Evans. I like Trey Palmer a lot. I do like him a lot. They also got Sterling Shepard, which is not that bad. They got Randy Gregory on the outside, although he hasn't really been heard of in a very long time. He hasn't been the same player he used to be. But I think the fact that we look at the schedule and we look at just the history of how Baker's played just last year against teams with a winning record, he was 1-5. And guess what? They went 0-5 versus teams that won over 53% of their games. However, 8-3 versus teams that missed the playoffs and 6-1 versus teams that finished below 500. So they beat up on bad teams and lose to good ones. Sounds a lot like some of the quarterbacks we put in the top 10 lists. Also, some of the quarterbacks who think they deserve $60 million.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here, although those quarterbacks are better. Their team situations are a little bit better. I will say, though, how much of this, and I think this is something that might go under the radar, how big of a loss will Dave Canales be? The OC for the Bucs, now the OC or the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. How big of a loss will that be? Because currently now you got Liam Cohen, who was Kent's offensive coordinator, brand new. How will Baker perform without Dave Canales?
Oh, it'll be interesting to see. It could have some negative impact on him.
I think it
performance.
Will. And I think on the flip side of that, although I don't think this is going to be that drastic, how much of an impact will Dave Canales have on Bryce Young? I don't think that much, because I don't think Bryce Young's that great of a quarterback.
Bryce Young being the bounce quarterback next year.
You're going to keep living off that bounce, aren't you?
Yeah, well, given that it doesn't have to bounce very far to be better than he was last year. It was terrible.
Yeah, he was bad. 8-9 though.
9-8.
That division got a little bit better with Kirk Cousins coming in instead of Desmond Ridder. I think the Falcons will take the division. I think the Bucs will be 8-9 right on their tails. Then I think it will be a three-way battle between. I do think the Packers might slip a little bit. I'll give them a 9-8, 8-9 record. Seahawks are going to be around there, I'm sure. Or the Rams, probably the Rams. And then the Buccaneers will be around that as well. So I think it's going to be an NFC battle is going to look good, because those teams are not as great and not as, the great teams in the AFC, we know they're great. And then the gap between them and the bad teams is massive. We look at the NFC. There's some really great teams, then really good teams, then okay teams, then bad teams. The progression line is pretty linear. The AFC, it's a cliff. Really great teams, good teams, horrible teams. There's no, okay, I guess. There's not really any of that. But in the NFC, it's a nice progression line.
We've seen a lot of parity in the NFL.
We have.
And our picks last year, I did better last year than I did the year before. I was over 500. But a lot of those games I got wrong, because there was parity there's a lot more parity in the NFL than there's ever been.
Yes. And I think that if we look at the quarterback situations in the NFC, is Baker in the top half of NFC quarterbacks?
I would say yes. I think so.
Well, let's think about it. Matt Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Then we go keep going down. Is Kirk Cousins a part of that?
I'd rank him a little higher than Baker.
Okay, so let's also go Jared Goff.
Yes.
Jordan Love.
Yes.
Did I say Matt Stafford already?
Yes.
Matt Stafford. Then we got some of the Derek Carr.
No.
So he's around the 7-8 quarterback.
So that's halfway.
Yeah, so he's a middle of the road NFC quarterback. Then we had the NFC, and it's not close. Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert.
Patrick Mahomes.
Once again, that gap in the AFC is massive.
Yeah.
And then the NFC, it's, like I said, nice progression line. All right, that does wrap up today's show of the Harvey Hour. We thank you for the constant support as always. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to be notified every time we upload a video and go live. I will see you Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Bye, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off